All right, we're entering the back half of Secret Invasion on Disney Plus, episode 4. We're really hoping that this series can pull it together. We're starting to panic because we're now over halfway through, and last week we were talking about how it wasn't really hitting. But did this week, and so did raise the stakes this week, and we will discuss it. But did it actually hit the mark? To discuss it all, there's only one man for the job. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have to call up the one, the only Dan. Dan. No, I'm still working on that last bit. I will get it right by the end. Dan, you're very welcome to join. Dan Lynham, of course, our Marvel guy.
Pleasure's always.
How are you?
Doing good. Been reading a lot of older comics at the moment, so the buzz is back. Reading some old Thor and some of my favorite titles. And just jump on some new Kickstarters, keeping the comic scene alive.
Nice. I love it. Do you know what, though? Like, this is what I like about when Marvel is around, especially with the weekly shows, because even if they're not great, it actually just reminds you that you like Marvel and you start checking out stuff you do like or checking out new stuff as well. So, it's, again, the projects can be mediocre at times, but again, it's more of a lifestyle that you get into and the everything else that you kind of
it really just brings up my love just start new titles and read old stuff over and over again. So that's what I've been up to. So yeah, nice. Very comic heavy last couple of weeks, so all good though.
Okay, good stuff. Looking forward to seeing if we can bring some stuff into the discussion. What we're going to do, guys, is, as always, this is into the Spoilerverse, so you are not in a safe space in terms of spoilers. It is a spoiler-filled zone. We're going to be talking about everything in the MCU, including up to date on the show up to this week. So if you haven't seen it, make sure you go away, come back, and listen to this afterwards or watch this afterwards, seeing the episodes. We're also going to talk about some comic book lore as well, but the goal isn't to kind of ruin those comics for you. It's to add some extra context and give you kind of the benefit of kind of maybe extra knowledge or characters or maybe some stuff that you might look out for, or Easter eggs as well. But again, we're not going to be getting into like specifically saying, and at the end of this arc that this person dies, so that means they're going to die in the show, because we want to enhance your viewing experience, not ruin it. Before we have our discussion, we're going to put ourselves back into the mindset of the episode, and the way we do that, as always, is with our alternate recap. And we begin episode 4, Beloved, or alternatively, the alternative title is the one where everything everyone predicted would happen did happen. Shock horror, Skrulisi didn't die, is what every single person on the planet said last week. Like every plot twist this show gives us. We rewind to Paris in 2012, where some Irish lad is pissing on the Eiffel Tower, still mad about Thierry Henry's handball. But in the show, Priscilla and Fury are having a candlelit dinner talking about poetry and being beloved. In present day, shock horror, Rhodey is a Skrull, is what every single person on the planet said when we saw him for a few seconds in the very first episode. He meets with Priscilla to plot to kill Fury, saying that he's going to DDT him from the top rope like the Undertaker. Dan, do you want to take this, or do you want me to take it? There's some holes in his argument here. Do you want to explain to the people who may not watch wrestling what's wrong with that statement?
Never did it.
No, not a thing. Like, I don't mind if he's plotting to kill. Like, do you know what it is that bothers me about this? Is the fact that he made the effort to, like, have a wrestling reference and then got it wrong. Do you know what I mean? It's like saying, I'm going to make you dinner, and then you come home to, like, a cold McDonald's takeaway. It's like, why did you say you were going to do it if you weren't? It's very annoying. Anyway, Fury listens in, heartbroken. Mate, don't check the phone if you don't want to read the texts. Come on, amateur move. Talos reveals his plan to Skrulisi. Basically, he's going to save the world from the Skrulls, then go to the president afterwards and ask for a favor. That is not how you negotiate, Talos. That's like me cleaning Dan's gaff and then afterwards giving him a bill for £100 without telling him. That's not how negotiating works. Skrulisi is horrified that this is what caused her to leave all of her friends, which also, maybe you should have heard the plan before leaving your friends. This family are idiots. The show continues to rip off Pulp Fiction, and when Fury confronts Priscilla at home, the two of them point guns at each other, but both miss from point blank range like they're a pair of Marvins. The show's climax sees gravity Gravik and henchmen pretending to be Russian attack the US president's envoy as he's en route to peace negotiations. Fury and Talos show up. Talos gets shot and everyone's like, that dude's an alien. And Fury's all like, it's okay, guys. He's with me, a known terrorist who is wanted by the government. And the US Army just kind of shrugs off all of that. Talos gets shot and Super Gravik stabs him to finish the job. Again, something we predicted would happen last week. Fury saves the president and leaves Talos's corpse rotting in the street. And there's something deep about the corpse of a beloved Skrull being left to rot in the street and nobody caring about it that just sums up Secret Invasion so far. And that was episode 4, Beloved. Dan, last week we were very key that, you know, we needed the shit to hit the fan, because so far what was happening was there was just a lot of shit going around the room and the fan was blowing it and there was just shit everywhere. Where is the shit now? Because it feels like shit did hit the fan, but do we give a shit?
No, I don't know how to even describe this. It's like someone went to plug out the fan and throw it out the window as I want them to, but instead it swung it around the room, last house on the left style, around their head, and splattered shit all over the place. Maybe.
Oh,
We're getting into some weird metaphors.
yeah,
but
it's right.
yeah. Has the shit hit the fan? No, it hasn't, because like the stakes, we wanted the stakes to be higher, and they're just simply not, unfortunately. An attack on a president against the Russians, you know, we're going down T2 Judgment Day kind of era here. This is simple. Like, it was simple for Skynet. It's even simpler now that the Skrulls are trying to recreate it. I don't know if it needed to be something bigger. It needed to be something more personal, not like your run-of-the-mill lazy attack on the president. In saying that, I'm an absolute nerd when it comes to action choreography and stuff like that, and I enjoyed the simplicity of what was going on with the action sequence itself, which was enough to take me out of the stakes of what was actually going on, which really still weren't high enough for this secret invasion. They're invading Earth, but once again, it's let's invade America.
Yeah, like the show, I want to be clear on this. The show isn't terrible. Do you know what I mean? It's like, when I watch it, I'm like, this is grand. This scene is quite good. Like, you hear, especially when it's just two characters having a conversation. The writing is quite good, but again, it's just the same thing that I said last week. And again, if you look at what actually happened, the Skrulls are starting a war between the US and Russia, which will tear the world apart. And one of the main characters in this episode probably died, and that's something that we'll discuss as well. But like, I'm guessing more than likely did die. So that should be enough. You know what I mean? But it's the fact that they haven't warmed us up to that point that when it happens, we're just like, oh yeah, no, that happened. Okay. And it's also the fact that we're predicting it. We're seeing it coming ahead of everything. Everything we discussed, like I covered there, is happening. And that's kind of the problem, because I want this show to take us by surprise. The good news is that, like, I think most of our theories now have happened. So, and we still have 2 episodes left. So I guess there's 2 episodes left to save us. Like I said, I don't hate this show. It's just happening. It's just a show that, and there's other shows that I'm watching right now that I'm much more hot about. Like the Bears coming back next week. I'd really love to talk about that, but we've committed to talking about this. So, but like, I also want it to turn around. So it's not impossible, but again, like this stuff did happen. We just don't care enough to actually acknowledge it or to feel when it does, which is a problem.
How do you think that, like, this is all ruined by something we brought back last week, which is once again the fan service? Like, Secret Invasion, the comic book, will dip into that for a while. A lot of the characters who were crucial in that storyline, Norman Osborn and Spider-Woman, have not been introduced to the MCU yet. Well, Norman Osborn has, but, you know, for it to work, it has to be, you know, this world is Norman Osborn. And then you've got a lot of other key players, like Doctor Strange and Iron Man, who just are not big enough for this miniseries. So, in the fact that they've gone so far away from the source material here, it means that have they robbed us of some of that fan service, or is there a chance that they're saving something big for the end of this episode? Because I think this show has shown us that we've all, as fans, set our expectations arguably too high, because it's a very solid 7 out of 10 espionage show, but because it comes under the Marvel banner, it's changed expectations.
Yeah, and but it is expectations that they've set with the Infinity Saga. You know what I mean? And again, I don't think we should maybe let them off the hook, because there are a lot of strings they can pull here. You know what I mean? It is a show where at any stage, and we spoke about it like when we're setting this up, as we just begun speaking about this, like when you have scrolls here, you essentially have a magic box where you can turn any character from any stage at any point into a scroll. You know what I mean? And they set their stall out by having Everett Ross be a scroll, you know, and you're like, oh shit, like this is the kind of thing we can do where it gets me thinking. So it's that they're leaving all of that on the table, and that the plot twists are just stuff that we see coming at every stage. Like, it is so predictable, and they're not throwing us any curveballs. Like I said, everything we've guessed has happened, like, which is a positive in a way, because like we've 2 more hours of this, but they don't have now the faith, and they don't have the belief, and they don't have us on the journey with them, that we're looking forward to this every week. But again, they absolutely could turn this around, and I'm not hating it. First off, I kind of want to discuss the death, though. Like, as we get into the episode, Talos, again, like last week, we saw, you know, Skrulisi at the end, Gaia, like she died, and we're like, no, she's not dead. Emilia Clarke, you don't get her in for that. Talos, we discussed, he probably is someone that could die. We didn't think the next episode, but here we are. Is he dead, though, or do you think there's another fake out? Can this show get away with another fake out?
No, I think for not to suffer from the death of Superman syndrome, it definitely needs to keep Talos dead now. We discussed like last week. It feels like his story has concluded, so maybe it's a better time to spend that now and pay out later, because it's the Nick Fury show. And like, I did feel that Talos, as probably a fan favorite, was starting to step out in front. Nick's very morally grey, whereas Talos comes from a place where you can really understand, you know, his home's taken away from him, he's lost everything. And I'm not going to say he's Mahatma Gandhi, but he's definitely the most peaceful as far as the scroll goes and what they're trying to obtain. So by, like, you know, killing the more morally white character, you have like given that sympathy edge back to Nick Fury. So yes, I think Talos dead, and that he needs to stay dead, and that his death here probably does matter more than killing him 10 minutes before we see the credits roll in the last episode.
Can I share my Talos hot take with you
Please do.
that I had after this? As we kind of get into his dead, I do think he's dead as well. Like, I think this show wouldn't get away with another fake out like this. Like, it's just, again, like, Marvel already has enough problems with people being dead because it's a multiverse, and anyone in theory could come back. Robert Downey Jr. could come back next week, like, because they've opened up that kind of worms with the multiverse. And but so I think they know that he has to be dead. But my hot take here is that Talos was always an idiot and deserved to die. Okay. And I like Ben Mendelsohn. It's not a diss on how he played the character, but how they scripted him. Okay. We discussed in the recap. Okay. Shit negotiation tactics, you know, like Gaia's pretty much like, what's your plan? And he's like, a plan. Yeah, of course. And then he just made it up on the spot. It was awful. But awful, like, not even just this episode, like awful diplomacy of kind of like last week he decided to meet Gravik, and we're like, oh, he definitely has a plan. What was his plan? He meets up with his worst enemy, and then when he meets up with him, and sure enough, his worst enemy says one thing that he doesn't like. Instead of being diplomatic and trying to negotiate, he immediately stabs him and walks off. Like, that's not like, and as well, like, it's not obviously gonna kill him, but like, then he just leaves and then just doesn't check that he's died. So now you've just pissed off your worst enemy worse. As well, last week you had him with the Navy commander, just killing him out of nowhere because, again, he said something you didn't like. You're in a war. You need to anticipate that these people are going to say things you don't like and think of the bigger picture here. Talos deserved to die. Again, I didn't hate the character, but he was an absolute idiot, and his decisions made no sense whatsoever. Like, I think last week he kind of had a rant where he thought he was the guy pulling the strings for Fury all along, and he thought like he was responsible for the MCU, and made a compelling enough discussion. But like, when you see his decision making and you step back a bit, you're kind of like, I think you're the idiot. But Fury just liked you hanging around as a sidekick. He found you funny.
So do you feel like that? Would you go on record as to say that Talos is the MCU's answer to Dwight Schrute from The Office, and that's who Nick Fury is in this scenario, is his Michael Scott? So it's like, in theory, if we can get just straight to the conclusion of what Dwight's trying to do, it'll work. That worked for Talos. He wants safety for his people. Okay. I see where you're going with it, but like the the journey to that point is riddled with idiocracy, and that's the problem. So yeah, I think that's what you're trying to say.
He's assistant to the director of Shield. He's not.
It's got so many layers.
Amazing, amazing. This week, oh wow, no, what? Rhodey's a scroll, shocker. And like at this stage now, he doesn't even seem to care if people
Yeah.
know. Like showing up to discuss and brief the president ahead of the attack, pretty much half cut by the looks of things. Don Cheadle, by the way, a lot of cool Don Cheadle names, by the way. You know what I mean? It's like Scrody and a lot of other cool ones that I've seen on Reddit. So fair play, guys. But Don Cheadle actually getting to flex his charismatic wings that we've just never seen him get to do in the MCU. So I'm kind of enjoying that, even if it's like no one would believe you're a roadie right now. And I don't understand why Fury just didn't call him out when he was acting that way. We kind of knew this was coming, but did it land for you? Is this impactful for you? Is this something that you're interested in?
I did do that. Oh, there we go. Because the way they'd set it up, it looked like that it was Priscilla. Like, because obviously, like when it cut to the shower, you couldn't really see the scroll's face. You could make out, okay, that's a scroll. And then when he stepped out of the shower, did the wiping in the mirror bit, and then it was Rhodey and not Priscilla's human form. That's when I kind of went, oh, little thing. Not that the whole reveal surprised me, and not the fact that it was a female scroll. It's just like, oh, there we go. There's a confirmation. It felt more like that it was going to be a grand reveal, even though we'd called it, but it was just like a fart in the fog. It was like, there we go, Rhodey.
Yeah.
That's it. And it was entertaining watching Scrody. Every time everyone says Scrody, I think Scrody. And I was like, everyone knows Scrody. He lives on Talbot Street. so Scrody, which I am definitely going to be calling him from now on. You're saying it wrong. No, you're saying it wrong.
Oh, fair. Okay, Scrody it is. Yeah, Scrody.
I can't remember what I was going to say. But yeah, Scrody. No, but just to see him being so over the top, like you were saying, it's really fun to see this side of Don Cheadle, which he was always very calculating, cold. And the James Rhodes of the comics, you could argue, was more so. He's very your atypical military man, so to be able to give them that flexibility and to be able to do something with a character and whatever makes sense is fun. I want to see like a little bit of War Machine stuff. That will be nice. I don't think we're going to get it because I'm just an absolute mark when it comes for the Iron Man suit stuff. I love it. It's like, an early comic I read, something I just big fan of. But the thing that's interesting about Rhodey and Scrody now is the fact that we need to find out, which is not a plot twist, but like a question, when Rhodey became a Skrull, how long did we have that Rhodey for? Because there's genuine implications with that now that are going to have a serious effect on the MCU deciding whether they want to, in my opinion, make the wrong decision and have him have always been a Skrull, or to have the abduction soon, which will just keep everything safe, which is important. Or it could be at any time, which would have loads of different implications. Like if it was before Civil War, was this an early Skrull plan to destabilize them because he was so heavily involved in that? The stuff he said to Sam Wilson, was that motivation, or did that have some ulterior motive? So if that's Rhodey, great. If it's Scrody, then no. There's a lot more layers here. So that's the interesting question. That if I wasn't a solid fan, that's the question that will bring me back next week to want to watch episode 5 and 6 to find out, as a fan of general MCU and what they do with the mythology, what ramifications it's going to have. And that's what's keeping me really interested now.
Kevin Feige has given a hint, and he has said we're going to know that we're going to get the answer by the end of the series, but he said that we have to look back and think of, and he kind of gave, it could be a red herring, but he's like, people will look back and see appearances that Don Cheadle had where he was actually a Skrull. Appearances, like I could see his Falcon and Winter Soldier, because that would make sense, where where he was in Falcon and Winter Soldier briefly and he's kind of like chatting to Sam. like he's kind of pulling the strings there. I could see if they retroactively kind of showed us what the Skrull motivation for that conversation is, I could be into it. I don't see the end game stuff because that's the last time, unless I'm forgetting something, that's the last time we saw Rhodey. And Endgame was very on point. Like there's a lot of emotional scenes in it that it really changed. There's a lot of scenes even referencing the emotion he had towards the death of Tony and that kind of stuff as well. That I don't see it. I feel like it'd make it worse if you kind of went for that. I hope like it's at least the Falcon and Winter Soldier one, but that's pretty much all I want it to be. Like it happened sometime during the blip. Maybe,
if it's the Falcon and Winter Soldier one, there is a serious ramification there, which is that their interactions in the show obviously lean very heavily into politics, what was going on in America time, and it hit home for a lot of people with their kindredship bone being African American. So to take that away and to have Rhodey as a Skrull, it hurts what I feel like what they're trying to do with that. So for me, if they're saying that okay, we need to bring it back here, we need to do some damage control, that just doesn't land for me because that stuff was important. Like Marvel's always been rooted in political movements that don't want people excluded for whatever reason that may be. That was prevalent in the way they messed with the pigment in the ink so they could have African American standard boys in the street scenes. That's why they like champion Luke Cage and the Black Panther. The mutants were obviously a whole metaphor for the civil rights thing, and stuff like that will hurt what message they were trying to convey in the first place, because that stuff was pretty heavy and needed at the time.
Yeah.
So is this Kevin Feige trying to red herring? Is he doing damage control, or what? It could be a million different things. But we know we can't trust Marvel traders. We can't trust this insider information now because look at all the trailer edits we've got, which I kind of love because it still keeps you guessing. All the rumors about the Olsen twins appearing in Multiverse Madness and all this stuff, and that stuff seemed like it was all, legit. And of course, none of it came to pass.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I do want it to matter. Like, I don't want it to be, you became a Skrull like the day before the series started. You know what I mean? Like, so I want it to matter, but then again, it does take away a lot. Like, you know what I mean? I heard a very interesting discussion that we would not be allowed to have on this podcast. But on the Midnight Boys, if you listen to Van Lathan, Charles Holmes, and the guys over at Ringerverse, they had a discussion around if Rhodey is a Skrull, is Rhodey allowed to use the N-word. Very entertaining. Go listen to it.
I've seen that going on a few times on YouTube and Instagram and stuff like that. But yeah, like dangerous territory.
Yeah, no, we won't have that, but I will recommend the Midnight Boys. Go listen to them. Let's talk about Priscilla. And that her relationship with Fury here again, kind of at the end of it all, nothing happened. You know what I mean? And it's just like the status quo was maintained. Do you think that she's going to be a player here? Do you think that there's going to be something that comes from this, or do you feel that that was just kind of drama for the sake of it, and kind of we've had our Priscilla arc?
I think what is the point of any of this? I honestly.
Say what you mean, Dan. Like,
I'm one of these guys who's like, I actually do like, a bit of, emotional connection, romance, or something that makes sense in my stories. I think it definitely heightens it. A great example that I'll call that back to for something that is very romantically driven but rooted in its action would be The Crow, which is a near classic, 90s film. So the two can be intertwined. Here, it's just like we mentioned, Fury has a wife. Let's throw in that it's a Skrull just for one cheap gasp, and the rest of it is so pretentious. Yeah. I mean, I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to tug at her heartstrings, but the poetry reading sounds and feels so forced. And I was like, who speaks like this to each other in their kitchen that is just full of metaphors between the masks and the books on Machiavellian writings behind Nick? It was like, Jesus Christ, you sit here in front of your metaphors, I'll sit on this side of the table in front of my metaphors. No one will be none the wiser. I'm sorry, but I don't care about the Nick Priscilla stuff. I can't.
Yeah. No, it's not great. And it feels like she can only be there for one or two reasons, like right now, where I don't think she's going to be a major power player. Like, technically, there is some emotional resonance there for Gravik, because I suppose she introduced Gravik to Fury and she brought him into the fold. So, you know, if she turns on him, then I suppose there's something there. But really, she can only be there, one, to be fridged, which let's just leave the fridging. We've already done it twice now. Or two, to have an emotional reaction, to be like kind of the emotional respondent if something is to happen to Fury in the end, you know, if he's to pass, which again could work. And again, we might rethink this stuff if that happens. But again, they really need to land the plane here, because I don't know where that's going to go. So let's look at, there's not much else to talk about, unless there's any kind of Easter eggs or anything else from this week that you want to hit on.
One thing I want to mention that really saved the episode for me, like I said at the very start, was I really enjoyed the choreography of the fight scenes. Obviously, being rooted in professional wrestling and growing up on 80s and 90s action movies, that sort of choreography was something I really got big into in my 20s, and it's something I really enjoy watching videos and really enjoy looking at stuff. And I have a lot of my favorite scenes of all time that are the best, you know, at this, that, and the other. But I really do appreciate when they take your time to put the little things in that make our viewing a lot more enjoyable. Like, the geography of the whole situation was set up perfectly with the flip cars where we were, and the cinematography of the action was excellent. So if you haven't watched this episode and you're just here for the spoiler, it's not a bad episode. It's probably one episode I'd watch more. So I'd recommend, as a viewer, if you enjoy the action, well, this is the episode, because as short and simple as it was, I did really enjoy that final action sequence. There was enough going on to really enjoy. So even though we do dump on this, because let's face it, that's just the more entertaining part of it. That's what people are here to hear about. They don't want to hear it. That scene was good. That scene was good. They want us to rag on it. But on the flip side of that, really enjoyed this. So go check out that if you haven't already. And like I said, you're just listening to the story synopsis, because if they continue with maybe a bit more action pieces in the fifth and sixth, which seems to be what they do, maybe there is a bit of salvation here in the end anyway.
I'll plus one that I agree. And look, I think if the show was kicking ass, people would love to hear it, us kind of appreciate it. And it is nice to hear when content is good, but it's just, they're just not giving us that. So we're playing the hand we're dealt. But I agree with that. There is a lot to be said. What I enjoyed about it was it's different to the normal Marvel action scene, and then there is big stakes there, like a major character died, the president was attacked, you know what I mean, and something that could in theory start a world war. So
Olivia Colman.
No, Olivia Colman, yeah, exactly.
What were they thinking?
I know. This is, she would have had it all. But like, I think, like, what I liked about it was it was low stakes. It wasn't like kind of huge battle scene in an airport, superheroes all like flying, coming at each other, you know, the property being destroyed everywhere and nobody kind of thinking about anything. It's just kind of big and loud. It was small. Every kind of shot mattered. Every decision mattered. So yeah, no, there was a lot to like about that, and it was exciting, if not kind of world ending, because we're bought in emotionally to the show. But it was a good sequence, and I would like to see more of that in this show, because I think it's a Nick Fury show. He's not a superhero. I know we have Super Skrulls, and look, what's probably going to end up happening is we're going to get Gaia against Gravik in a big fuck off, like kind of Marvel end of, like, you know, and it'll be Super Skrull versus Super Skrull. That's what we're here for. But I don't mind having these kind of at a lower key action sequences than the usual kind of blow ups that we're used to at Marvel.
Yeah.
Let's look at where we are now ahead of next week. So, and you know, I say that we don't know what's going to happen, but you can kind of map stuff out. Fury's with the US president. It seems like since he had to use the super Skrull powers, and also since Talos got exposed, that Gravik is going to be exposed. Like, Fury at the very least can just tell the president this is what the story is, and now he has evidence to back it up. Well, we also know that Gaia has superpowers, so she's there again. Like you said, no Olivia Colman, but she is still somewhere in the background. I hope they haven't just introduced her and then just not used her. I'm sure she'll be back. What are you expecting for this week's episode as we head into the penultimate?
Just the stakes once again to go up. Like, that's what we need. The attack's been delivered on the president, and once again, like I said at the start, the source material, they've gone so far away from it. So what they achieved at the end of that is not what they're going to get here. There was genuine large implications. It wasn't the start of the Dark Avengers, but I remember I think Norman Osborn had teamed up with the Thunderbolts or something like that. The end escapes me, but we're not going to be getting that sort of conclusion. I think everything's going to be kept down. I'd like to see something happen. I want to see in the next 5 episodes a catalyst being set up to bring us into the next chapter, because that's one thing they did very well at the end of the Infinity Saga, we haven't done now. So something should happen that I think is gonna set us up maybe into the Fantastic Four. I think that's the way they should go. We should just get what we're expecting, another action piece, a significant character shift, something to happen with Nick, but I still don't think he's gonna die. I think he'll be carried forward. And then something that very obviously get us excited and lead us in. And it shouldn't just be delegated to the post-credit stuff. We need to see something change in the world, because right now the stakes in all these series and shows I feel are very low. But if you look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe as one entity, the stakes are even lower, because everything's just continuing on this flat line of everything we've done recently doesn't have a major implication. The biggest implication being the conclusion of the Eternals, with the Celestial sticking out to sea, and we've only seen that mentioned in parody once or twice, when it looks like that this is possibly going to be connected to what we're expecting the X-Men series that Marvel boots up in those movies they haven't mentioned being. So it just feels like nothing's happening in the MCU, that everyone has their own individual stories, there's very little connection, and everyone's just getting on with things. I want to see something happen that's going to bring us to the next level, and we haven't got that in so many shows or movies.
I agree, and I think we're going to be disappointed a little bit in that front. I think back to Quantum Mania, and we were so certain before that happened that it's like, they have to do something. This is setting up the Kang dynasty. So, I didn't think we necessarily thought Scott Lang was going to die, but we're kind of like, he's definitely going to lose because Ant-Man isn't beating Kang. You know what I mean? And it's like, so shit's going to hit the fan and it's going to explode everything and blah, blah, blah. But we forget that Marvel likes, and I guess it's a problem with getting different creators and different writers in for different projects, in that if you're a creator, you want your part of the story to have a start, middle, and an end. You know what I mean? You don't want to just have, I'm just going to not end my story so it can carry on. But as fans of this connected universe, we want the stories to bleed into each other. We want this to end on a cliffhanger. We said at the start that we're like, I don't want this to just be 6 episodes and at the end, the secret invasion's over, Gravik is killed, normal order is restored. But that's what Marvel like. That's what they do. And then we have a post-credit scene that hints towards something that might be interesting. But I think what I would like to see here is similar to what we said. I want this to bleed into the Marvels. I think it's totally relevant. Carol Danvers is connected to all of this. I wouldn't mind if we even see Deus Ex Danvers at the end of the series. You know what I mean? She just comes in, Gaia is losing to Gravik, and then Danvers comes in, and then that's kind of, because we know she's on the Earth. Again, if we're to infer from Miss Marvel, we know that Danvers is back. If that's kind of around the same timeline, which it should be, there shouldn't be a huge difference in it. So again, I think I would like to see that. I'd like to see this end messy. I think there's time to do that. I want more Olivia Colman. I don't want Olivia Colman to just be another character is kind of just hanging around in the background, the utility character. A string they can pull on if they need someone. I want her to matter. I want a backstory. I want to hear who she is and see why she's relevant. Why is Fury calling upon her? Why does she seem to know all the answers? I want to know more of that. I hope she's not a Skrull, and I hope this isn't a one and done for her. I hope she's someone that, again, she could be the new Nick Fury, you know what I mean? And that kind of character for the MCU. And I think I think next week we're going to get the Rhodey backstory. I don't see why that should bleed into the finale. So I'm interested in that side of things. But I think ultimately we are going to get like just a nice clean ending, and then they're just going to kind of hint at something, probably take us towards. I'd say you're not wrong. I'd say there's a post-credit scene that might be the first kind of hint we get towards the Fantastic Four, because they've announced that as a project, and then infuriating, we don't hear any more about this for years until we see that project. But I would like it to bleed messily into the Marvels and make that a bit more of an event.
One question for you, that I'll see if you can answer. How much do we know about the current US president in the MCU? Do we know much about his cabinet or anything like that?
No, we
Do we
didn't
know who his
about
VP
nothing.
is?
No.
What if it's Thunderbolt Ross? Now, we know the Thunderbolts are coming up. We
Yep.
know that he's been recast. What happens if one of the first post-credit scenes, the ones after, like the middle credit scene, is the president has died or he can't continue his duties, and it's Thunderbolt Ross who putting his hand on the Bible and being sworn into office, because we know that's how it's
Oh,
going. That's what I'm predicting for one of the post-credit scenes. Calling it now. But post credit, like in the show, I want a Fantastic Four connection.
okay.
And that can be maybe the thing that brings us up to the executive producer, Kevin Feige. But
Yeah.
I want to see the Fantastic Four stuff in the actual main part of the story. And I have a prediction. We're going to see something to do with Thunderbolt Ross.
That is a good job. Imagine getting Harrison Ford at the end of this. I'd be like, instantly forgive everything. The 6 hours were worth it. Just
That's
for
where
that.
the budget's going.
Yeah, that's it. Literally, just 30 seconds of Harrison Ford. I'm like, I'm in. Yeah, there you go. Well done, guys. Another great job. That's all it takes, to be honest. But look, we're fans, and that's what it is. Dan, always an absolute pleasure to discuss this with you. And look, whatever about the show, I am having fun having these discussions. So thanks for joining us on page 180, and we'll be back next week, hopefully absolutely reinvigorated again as they pull us back together into penultimate episode, like it's a HBO drama or something like that. Let's be optimistic. Why not?